Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone. I'm Anthony.
I'm Dr. Kurt's dad, and if you want to understand that, you're going to have to go back a lot of episodes.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 336 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Every time we record, we talk about comic books. We will be joined by Katie later on in this episode, so we look forward to her as well. We have no club discussion this week, but in future episodes, we'll continue discussing Uncle Scrooge, Earth's Mightiest Duck, with issue number 3. And then this episode, we're going to dive into weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth, talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. And then in the news segment, we're going to talk about the October 2025 previews for products coming out in December and beyond. So that is going to be the lineup of the show, the weekly reviews, and the October previews catalog. So let's jump right into the weekly reviews. First up for the weekly reviews, I'm talking about Quick Stops, Volume 3, Issue number 2. Now, it is random that I would kind of pick not a first issue of something, but the Quick Stops series is basically an anthology series that takes place in the Kevin Smith world of movies. Your Clerks, your Mallrats, your Dogma, your Chasing Amy, and Jay and Silent Bob. And this is the third volume of stories, and this particular issue is something I wanted to bring to the table because it was an extra special one. This is an issue that is honoring the late Shannon Doherty with her passing in 2024, and her character specifically in the Mallrats universe of Kevin Smith. Here's the quick little write-up. In this very special issue of Quick Stops, Kevin Smith pens a touching tribute to friend, collaborator, and early architect of the Askew-universe, and the reason that Mallrats exist, Shannon Doherty. Join us as we honor our friend and co-star with two stories, one about Shannon's immaculate sense of humor, and the other is a requiem for her character in Mallrats. She played Renee. This is done by Kevin Smith, Ryan Gaja, and Andrew Thomas. So if you follow Kevin Smith, you'll know that he was on Shannon Doherty's podcast, and not long, before she had passed away. And during that time, he had been trying to amp up the excitement to get a sequel to Mallrats. Now he's been doing sequels to Clerks and Jay and Bob, and he's talking about Dogma right now. So all of his old properties, he's kind of revisiting these characters. And he had a sit-down conversation with Shannon, and they basically read a scene that he had written in Mallrats 2, intended to eventually film it for the movie. He always shares all of his stuff. He doesn't keep a lot of his script secret, and he's an oversharer. And so they record that on the podcast, and then sadly she passed away not long after. And what he did is that the first story in this is illustrated of Kevin Smith introducing the comic book, and it's him drawn as himself, not Silent Bob in this, and it's him talking about his friendship with Shannon Doherty. So you see some art examples of just how it all started with casting her into Mallrats all the way back in the early 90s, and being a fan of 90210 and just watching her all the time when he was working the actual Quick Stop convenience store. And so it is a loving tribute of his friendship, just a human-to-human friendship off screen. And then the second part of the story is dipping into where the characters are now in the Mallrats universe. And so you see Jason Lee's character, Brody, which, by the way, I just met Jason Lee recently at the Chronicon convention in Rosemont, Illinois. And a lot of the Mallrats cast was there to celebrate one of the anniversaries. But what's really cool is that that audio reading that Kevin and Shannon did on her podcast, which you can listen to for free, it's still up there. It is now illustrated in comic book form. So it was very cool to listen to that a year ago, and now a year later to get it seen drawn out as one of the official stories within this comic book universe. And Quick Stop, the series as a whole, has been really good. If you're a fan of all those films, I highly recommend these comics because they're just giving you more stories that he just doesn't have time for in TV shows and movies when you have to deal with budgets and corporations and studios and all that kind of stuff. You know, he basically gets to tell those adventures in these comic books. And this one was extra special. I had to double dip on the covers just because of it was Shannon. So I got two different cover choices for the Quick Stops Volume 3, Number 2. And because it is an anthology, you don't need to read any of the other volumes or any of the other issues to just dive right into it. That's the beauty of the anthology series.
Not when you could turn on the podcast and just look at the pictures as you go.
And he literally recommends that in the book, where I have yet to go through that experience, but I plan to do so. And yeah, he said you could just play that audio and then just go through. It's basically a read along, and yeah, it's a tragic, tragic story, tragic ending for Shannon Doherty, but up until her last moments, especially on that podcast, that she was funny as ever and had the best sense of humor, and this is one way that they can honor her through this, and hopefully we'll see a Mallrats sequel in the future that would, there's other plans for that. What Kevin plans to do with a recasting, but in a very loving and personal way that I'm very excited at what he's hoping to do. But anyways, just wanted to give that shout out there. It's a brand new issue, and especially for those that haven't been checking out the other ones, you can just dive into this. So rest in peace, Shannon Doherty. All right. Normally, this is where we have Katie jump in. We'll wait for her to join us on the Zoom, but we're going to jump over to Dr. Kurtzstad. So, what's your first pick this week?
Well, we were talking about before the show that I'm becoming more of a comic historian than anything else because a lot of the newer titles aren't as appealing to me anymore. And what I decided to do for a while now in my segment is I'm going to take you to comics that were very short run. And then we can ask the question, well, what was it that kept this from becoming a really, important part of whatever universe? So I want to start out with this one. Demon Hunter, number 1. You'll notice that it's from Atlas Comics, which no longer exists. I thought this was just a great title. When I first saw this, it was like, wow, this is really great. The comic starts with a guy up on a cliff getting ready to assassinate someone across the way. And suddenly this character in red suit, blue cape, shows up on the hill behind him. As it unrolls, the assassin realizes he knows this person. They were in the war together. And he says, well, you can either fight me or jump off the cliff. And the assassin turns around and jumps off the cliff. So the story then continues that this is a person who's working for a man named Severs. He has been hired out to him as kind of a bodyguard sort of person by a group called the Harvesters of the Night. And it turns out that he is an operative called the Harvester of Eyes, who basically does assassinations for them. As it rolls out, it turns out that his name is Darian Cross. He was a Vietnam vet. He came out of Vietnam and his wife immediately left him. He ran through all kinds of things like working for the mob and doing other things, and he just never found a place that seemed to fit who he was. And this cult, the Harvesters of the Night, chose him. We find out it's because he has kind of a sixth sense, telepathic sort of abilities and ability to sense when things are wrong. And they make him the Harvester of Eyes. They give him this special suit that he has. The most important part of it is the cloak. The cloak can hide his identity, so he can look like anybody when he walks into a room. He can be invisible with the cloak on. He can mentally control the cloak so that he can use it as a weapon. But I think the coolest thing for me was he could reach into the cloak and pull out weapons from other dimensions, arcane weapons to use when he's fighting.
Cool.
So he goes back to his person who he's working for and collects the fee for the Harvesters of the Night, which is a bunch of money and a vial of blood. He has no idea why he's collecting these vials of blood for the group, but goes ahead and does that. And then the man says he'd like him to go and kill his associate, who's going to try to take the company from him in Jamaica. And so they set that up. But as Cross goes back to his room, he begins to wonder about all this stuff. What's going on with vials of blood? Why is this happening? He, at this point, thinks the Harvesters of Night have an agenda to move the world forward into something new and better. But he's starting to wonder about it. So he takes the blood and the money to the contact he's supposed to for the Harvesters of the Night. And it turns out to be a demon who he has to then fight. He defeats the demon and finds out that things aren't quite what he thinks. So he sneaks into the headquarters of the Harvesters of the Night and finds out that what they want to do is carry on a rite called xenogenesis, which will bring back an ancient ancient group of demons to rule the world as they used to in the past. And these people hope that they will then gain a special place in this new world that's being created. And so Cross decides that he has to oppose this. This is not what he expected. This is not what he wanted. And so he has decided now he will become the demon hunter who's going to stop this from happening. And also, as he's watching, the cult takes the blood that he brought for them, and puts a demon in the body of the person who hired him. Mr. Severs is now a demon. And so they need bodies to hide who they are, to further their control in the world. So the comic ends then with Cross getting onto a plane, heading off to Jamaica to try to question the person who his employer was going to send him to kill. But behind him is another demon in human form, looking at Cross, preparing to kill him. And that's where the comic ends. The problem is that Atlas Comics folded. So Demon Hunter was a run of one.
That was going to be my question: is how many issues were in the series?
When I first got this, I didn't realize that, and then I went looking for any others. This is it. Demon Hunter #1. Okay. It was created by Richard Buckler and David Anthony Kraft. Now you would say, well, that's a sad end to this, but that's not quite the end of the story. And in my next section, you will get the next little piece of the short run character, Demon Hunter.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Well, here we go. We're going to welcome Katie into the show. Katie, how are you?
Hi. How's everyone today?
Doing good. We're only 2 reviews in, so we're still pretty early on. Dr. Kurtstad just talked about Demon Hunter, and I talked about Quick Stops, Volume 3, Issue number 2. So
mine was Demon Hunter #1, which was the only one.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Short and sweet and to the point.
And if you are prepared, feel free to continue on the Lilo and Stitch adventures.
Sure. So, as Anthony said, this is the next installment in Disney's Lilo and Stitch, published by Dynamite. It's written by Greg Pak. The artist and colorist is Giulia Giacomino. Color assistant is Simona Guida, and Jeff Eckelberry is the letterer, and have a whole bunch of different covers, so a lot of great talent on that. This looks like it's the last in the series for now, although there's just a Stitch comic coming out, so I wonder if that's going to be a continuation or separate. I guess we'll see. So in this book, it starts with Lilo taking her now growing group of space monster babies to dog training, because last issue they were really naughty and busted up the town and caused a ruckus. So this poor dog trainer is they're gaslighting her a little bit, because they're like, oh yeah, they're dogs, and she's like, yeah, they're dogs, yeah, okay, but she still is going to try and train them and teach them, you know, how to walk nice on a leash and how to not bite people and to come when they're called. And well, they're learning, they're trying, but they're still kind of naughty. And then Myrtle, Lilo's kind of frenemy from dance class in school, is bringing her dog Baxter, which is an actual like Earth dog, to puppy school. And all the other pets see Baxter and immediately want to start playing with him and wrestling and running around being goofy, and it gets Baxter off. So he starts acting naughty, even though he's been learning commands in dog class. And then the teacher says, well, actually, Baxter's been here before. You should all watch him. So now they all watch Baxter, but their influence cannot be denied. And we got a bunch of goofy scenes of Stitch and Baxter and all the little space monsters tearing up the obedience school and reducing the poor teacher to tears. And Myrtle, being not always the nicest person, is saying, wow, my dog was, you know, doing really good, and then your weird dog messed it up, and you're such a weirdo. And then Lilo says, well, your dog is just boring, and you know, you can't insult me by calling me a weirdo, because I am a weirdo. And then the dogs and all the other little monsters go over to the art center and are doing some drawings, where they start drawing bigger versions of themselves stuck in cages on their home planet. And we find out that a few years ago, a galactic real estate developer wanted to pave over a nature preserve and put up some, you know, like hotels and apartments and touristy stuff. And they compromised and said, well, we'll move the native animals into like a zoo. But the animals are really unhappy in the zoo because they're stuck in cages, and now their babies are on Earth, and everyone's very upset. So Lilo and Stitch are going to find a way to fix it. And since Lilo has now been appointed a representative of the Federation, she goes to the Federation lady, is like, okay, we want to do something about this. And then the councilwoman says, well, I kind of want to do something about it too, but we got contracts that say that we can't, and you know, nobody who is a member of the Federation can interfere in this, because if you did, it would be an act of war. Well, they brought Baxter along and used the ray gun that alters the creature's sizes, where they're making them really tall and then really tiny. Used it on Baxter. He busts open the cages and frees all the aliens. And now the alien families are all back together and happy again, and a diplomatic situation was averted. And somebody says to Stitch, well, why don't you go with them? You'll be among your own people. You'll be with your family. And, you know, Stitch looks at Lilo, and he looks back at the space monsters, runs up to Tiny, the dinosaur we met a couple issues ago, high fives her, and runs back to Lilo, and they go back to Earth, because Stitch already is with his family and he is with his people. And that closes the book. They all go down to the beach, and we get a nice happy ending scene with this goofy bunch of weirdos who somehow made it work and became an ohana together. Really cute book. You know, continuing the same themes of like family and caring for others and being responsible for the environment. You know, it continues to be colorful. There's action, but there's no real violence, and just super fun. I'm glad I picked this up. It's a nice light read, and every time I read it, I smile. So that's my review of Lilo and Stitch number 8. Check it out.
Cool. Yeah, it's been fun hearing all the continuing adventures of them. So,
Yeah. It's very episodic too, in that they could probably, anytime they want to do like the Lilo and Stitch St. Patrick's Day special, or, just, hey, we're going to do another short run, you could definitely make that work as well. So,
cool. All right, we're going to kick it over to Jim. What you got?
I have the #1 issue of Immortal Legend Batman. I picked this out a while back. This is actually the August release of the title, #1, because it is an Elseworlds title. And I always enjoy Elseworlds, where you're going to take a different take on Batman. Yes, I'd like it to be completely separate from the current run or anything like that. So make it a different world, and it makes me happy rather than trying to contort your new version of Batman into everything that's been going on. So this is good. And I also did enjoy this. I think this is one of the coolest looking bat logos I've seen for a while. So that's really awesome. And just to begin, the creative team, writers Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, artists Erica Durso and Dan Mora, Igor Monti and Tamara Bonbillon in colors, and Becca Carey doing the letters. So, like I said, Elseworlds, and they really do a different Elseworld. It's slightly futuristic, where their technology is higher than ours, but it's also kind of not quite steampunk, more like pioneer Western punk, because the dress is all kind of like Western sheriff, kind of things. That's kind of cool. And the premise is that a while back, long time back, things happened that shattered the universe and separated the main universe from the shadow universe, and shadows were able to get in and affect people. And the shadows are basically demons, of some sort, that are able to do bad things to the people of Earth, or not Earth, but their planet. And in order to combat that, basically 3 martial art disciplines were developed, and they became concentrated into one person at a time who held the title. And they were the Way of the Robin, the Way of the Bat, and the Way of the Nightwing. Thus, you are able to have the Immortal Legend Batman that would, the title would pass on to the next qualified member of the discipline. So, and of course, at this point, the familiar characters are all in play someplace. Tim Drake is the Robin, and Dick Grayson is the Nightwing. And at the current moment, Bruce Wayne is the Batman. And we have a story where the Batman goes and meets the sheriff and mayor of a small town where there's been murder happening. And the Batman tracks him down and says, there's a shadow here, and that shadow is the sheriff, Bruce Wayne. And they say, you can't do that. He's a trillionaire who left his money and came here to live a simpler life. So they ended up fighting, and the Batman was able to prove that he knew that the other man was a shadow and not actually Bruce Wayne, when he took off his helmet and revealed himself to be Bruce Wayne. And up until this moment, nobody had ever known who the person was behind any of these characters. The characters have been around for generations, but nobody ever knew. And it was also really cool. It was kind of like he just pushes a button on his utility belt, and the armor, everything he was wearing is gone. He's standing there normal clothes with just the bat utility belt around his waist. You know, that's kind of like with the Iron Man in the
Yeah.
last one, where it just pops onto him when he needs it.
Like nanotech type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And then, it's like I said, I've read the first issue. I looked it up. There are only 6 issues in the story. 3 of them are out already. Um, so that is a run that I am willing to commit to, and I'm going to go along and keep reading this. There was a interesting reveal in why Batman is, or why Bruce Wayne might not be the best Batman, and the story takes an interesting turn at the very end. For people who are familiar with the Batman histories and other people who have tried to be Batman, maybe you can guess who the other option is, and especially when you take on the conceit of the story where the Batman, the Robin, the Nightwing are all inheritors of a title and not necessarily the creators of the title. So there are other people who are in waiting to possibly take up that. You can maybe guess who is the possible next inheritor who will try to take the title.
I can
Alfred.
think of 2 or 3.
Cool. All right. We are going to jump into the next one here. If you're watching this on YouTube, Crimson Cowl Comic Club over on YouTube, don't let the Swamp Thing t-shirt fool you, because I am also a fan of Marvel's Man Thing. So I am talking about the Marvel Masterworks, The Man Thing Volume 1. From the swamps of the South comes the Man Thing. The brilliant Dr. Ted Sallis, progress on his new super soldier serum, gained the envious attention of AIM. One untested injection in a hot pursuit car crash into the swamp later, Sallis is forever changed. He is now the Man Thing, a lumbering creature with the searing power to burn those who know fear. Under the writer of Steve Gerber, this concept became a 1970s comic book classic, mixing horror, occult, and the Marvel Universe. Gerber's unique narrative concoctions could produce taught mortality tales, biting social commentary, a budding sorceress, and a nexus of all realities, and Howard the Duck. And with the top flight restoration of the Marvel Masterworks, the Muck Monster has never looked better, or worse. Bad in a good way, that is. This is collecting Astonishing Tales from 1970, issues number 12 and 13, Fear number 11 to 19, Man Thing number 1, Marvel 2-in-1 from 1974, number 1, the material from Savage Tales 1971, number 1, and Fear number 10. So, this is mostly done by Steve Gerber and Val Merrick. They get the billing at least on the cover treatment. There's a lot of people with all these different titles and stories that have contributed to this collection as well. But what's cool with the Marvel Masterworks, you're getting these all kind of collected. The one thing I do understand if because they update, kind of restore the coloring and the paper and stuff like that. I understand the want and the need for it to kind of look like how it was back when it came out as well, but that's just not how they do it with these books. I think if you want that kind of treatment, you go into those big paperback editions. I'm trying to think if they're the Epic collections or something they're called.
Yeah.
They're like black and white and
Right.
yeah.
They look like this.
Essential. Yeah, yep, that's it. There we go. That's exactly it. So, couple things that I flagged is that I love seeing some of this origin stuff. The opening story is presented in black and white, and when you're reading like Swamp Thing and Man Thing related stories, I just love seeing that black and white creature art. I just love just the detail and the grittiness of some of these stories. And opening scene has him fighting an alligator in a swamp, dealing with Dr. Ted Sallis, who him and his I believe just girlfriend were kind of hiding away in a cabin. He's working on a like a super soldier serum, basically to produce more of it. And AIM, AIM is the organization that's always causing trouble across the Marvel universe. They're always trying to get their their hands into everything. So while Ted Sallis is trying to protect this serum and this experiment that he's doing, he's basically kind of out on the run, and he's in a chase and accident to the swamp, and realized the best way to protect his scientific secrets is to take the super soldier serum himself, just so that there's no evidence and it doesn't get into the bad guy's hands. But that, plus going into a swamp, and then you just add all your supernatural comic bookiness, it turns him into this big muck monster naturally. So you get all that stuff with the origin stories. You then dive into color stories as well. There's a couple things I bookmarked just to kind of show off. They have connecting stories with other Marvel Universe characters. So Kazar is one of the early interactions here with Man-Thing. So you see some Kazar action. One thing that I love with a lot of Man-Thing stories, that it's not a Man-Thing story unless the last panel looks like this, where it's Man-Thing from the back just kind of walking off back into the swamp or into the woods. And it's such a classic type of device that they use in these comic books, of just kind of, yep, he's just kind of going back to his sad existence, and he's misunderstood. He can't speak. He has some inner monologue at times, but doesn't really remember who he once was. And he's mostly treated as a monster based on his appearance. But as you'll see in almost all of these stories, that he is just someone trying to be a hero, but other people are scared of his appearance, and until till they realize that he's trying to save the day, then that it's too late, because he's lumbering off to the bog once again. One of the best stories that is collected in this here is from Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 1. So the first ever issue of this series was the perfect title here: The Thing and Man-Thing. So he has Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Man-Thing, as you can see from the cover, are wrestling it out right there on the cover. And this story is one of the first ones to bring comedy into these Man-Thing stories, because it starts with Ben Grimm, the Thing, reading a newspaper with Man-Thing on the cover, and he sees that. He's like, "Hey, this guy's stealing my name. He's taking my gimmick. I'm the Thing, and this guy's he's known as the Man-Thing." So essentially, their first meetup is just because Ben Grimm is upset that his name is being stolen or tarnished and whatever. So you got a story involving the Molecule Man from Fantastic Four lore that's happening here, but it's quite funny when Ben Grimm meets the Man-Thing, and finally they're ready to square off. But as you have two heroes, as you normally do when you have two heroes who are fighting each other at first, it's always fun to see when they realize that and decide to team up. But just the idea of very early on in the career there, just to have the Thing and Man-Thing. And then another story I'm going to highlight is from Adventure into Fear, issue number 18. This one, I just love how these stories always start and just catching people in life, and then you always have Man-Thing just kind of lurking off and just kind of looking into the distance. This story is revolving around a drunk driver who crashes into a bus. And the story is ultimately dealing with a bunch of strangers on the bus who have now been in this giant accident. And there is a young boy who's in critical condition here. And the strangers on the bus, are all kind of, focusing on the wrong thing. They're sitting here just trying to start fights, and they're, getting upset at this drunk driver. Not realizing that there are more critical things and more important things right now, especially when a child is left in danger, and leave it to the Man-Thing to see all of this happen as he, here's the image, as he steps into the frame, out of the woods, out of the swamp, and of course, when you've got this creature coming out, quote unquote, taking this child, there's some extra danger there until they realize he's going to take the child to somebody who can help, and so yeah, and then it's just one of those stories that's always done so well. A lot of these stories are just taking these random characters when you don't have your big Marvel superhero guest cameo. Most of the Man-Thing stories in these early comics are just dealing with people that you'll never see again in the Marvel universe. It's just a jumping into very anthology type of story, and it's always fun to just see how Man-Thing always stumbles upon these interactions, and he's always out to do the good thing even if everyone's out to attack him. And if you're unfamiliar with Man-Thing, one of the cool things that sets him apart from the Swamp Thing character is that whoever has fear burns at the Man-Thing's touch, whatever the quote exactly is. A lot of people kind of get pretty tough and they feel pretty brave and just being like, all right, here's a monster, I'm going to take him out, until they come face to face with the Man-Thing and realize that they're actually scared, and when Man-Thing touches them they just burst into flames. So it's an extra shock and a cool interesting power that's kind of just something cool that has nothing really to do with anything other than, hey, this would be a fun little spin on it. So that's one of the cool things that he has over Swamp Thing when it comes to their powers and such. Marvel Masterwork collections, to finish it up with the back matter, you see some of the original scripts in here, so you just see them scanned in and just see it typed out. You see things circled, and whether they're editor's notes and things like that. And then you definitely get some original art scans of especially the covers, because the covers are beautiful when they're black and white creature art. So you get all that stuff in the back matter as well. This is a great collection. I was excited to see them put them out in the Masterwork version, and I finished Volume 1 just in time for Volume 2 to arrive. So I'm going to dive.
That'll be next time.
Yeah, I'll be diving into that as well. But it's one of those things that I'm not sure how long they're doing these Marvel Masterwork things and how long they're committing to the character. So I'm going to do my part right now, buy these as they're being solicited, to show that we want these stories preserved and out there. So yeah, that is the Marvel Masterworks Man-Thing. Very awesome stuff, and it was fun to read.
Man-Thing is a great character.
Yes. And then talking about the couple years now, but the Werewolf by Night Disney Plus special, that was his MCU debut. I'm a little sad to see that we have not seen him since, but I'm crossing the fingers that they'll do more with that in the future. But thought he had a very good live action debut, and not a lot of screen time, but I think just enough for a character of his nature. So, all right. So, yep, that was that. We are going to jump back to Dr. Kurtstad. What you got next?
Well, we talked about Demon Hunter, done by Kraft and Buckler in 1975. Well, Kraft and Buckler ended up over at Marvel. And so in 1977, we get this comic. It's number 33 of Marvel Spotlight. Says Deathlock, but see that guy fighting with Deathlock?
Okay.
Doesn't he look an awful lot like Demon Hunter?
Okay.
Except the costume. Originally, Demon Hunter had a red costume and a blue cape. This has a blue costume and a red cape.
Okay.
And so this character who appears with Deathlock in this is called Devil Slayer. And rather than Darren Cross, who was the original Demon Hunter, this is now Eric Simon Payne.
Okay.
But as the story unfolds, it's exactly the same story as Demon Hunter. He is, in fact, coming back from Jamaica. Remember, at the end of Demon Hunter, Cross is on his way to Jamaica. Eric Payne is coming back from Jamaica. When he runs into Deathlock, who has been sent from the future to this time period, and in the airport they run into at a hospital when Eric is on his way to see his ex-wife, warn her about the the possible demonic infestations that are coming and that she might be a target because he is. He runs into Deathlok, who he immediately assumes is a demon. Deathlok immediately assumes that Pain is one of the people who is holding him in the future. And so, of course, we get the typical hero fight hero battle that goes on. Now, the interesting thing, a twist they kind of throw into this is that Eric Payne's ex-wife looks exactly like Deathlok's wife from an alternative reality. And so now they both think this person is their wife. At one point, it looks like Deathlok's winning, but Devil Slayer takes his cloak and vanishes into a pocket dimension because his cloak allows him to teleport. And one of the places he can go is a pocket dimension. And Deathlok runs off with the woman, who they both think is their wife. Eric Payne can watch them through his cloak in the other dimension and pops back in and then swoops Deathlok off into the pocket dimension where they start to fight again. Now, Deathlok is totally disoriented at this point by being taken off into another sphere of reality. And so Payne gets the upper hand, pulls a mace out of his cloak, and starts to beat on Deathlok, who suddenly realizes this is all a big misunderstanding, that they have thought of, of each other as enemies, but they're not enemies. And so they eventually come to that understanding. They go back. They show Eric Payne running up to his wife, taking care of her after she's been hurt. In fact, as they come back, she's being attacked by demons, and the two band together to stop the demons. Then Payne is taking care of his wife, and Deathlok disappears. So what was Demon Hunter is now Devil Slayer. We still have basically the same story going on, which I was really excited to find out. But the problem is that this new character, Devil Slayer, will only appear in a handful of other places. He's in Defenders 97 to 100, in which they help him. That takes place. This was the Marvel Spotlight was 1977. 80, 81, he appears in Defenders. The first appearance, the Defenders help him stop Xenogenesis, which is his central goal. They fight together against the now what's just called the Night Cult, rather than the Harvest of Night Cult. I think all these things were changed because probably Atlas had all the rights to these, so they had to alter everything just enough to put it in now to a new comic company. So he appears 3 there, and he then appears in Defenders 58 to 60, and then in Defenders 97 to 100, he shows up again to help the Defenders stop the Hand of 6 Fingers, which is really 6 demons who have bound together their powers to try to take over the Earth, who in the end turn out to be all pawns for Mephisto.
Of course.
And so they all have to then defeat that. Then he appears in a couple more issues of the Defenders in which, first of all, he helps stop some supernatural beings that have come into the world. And then he thinks he's defending his wife, and it turns out to be a copy. And at that point, he disappears in anguish. So we never see him again, except he's in I talked at one point about the Dark Siege series with all the kind of mystical figures from the Marvel Universe. Well, in the last few pages of 3 issues, he appears with a little story they're telling where now he is a paranoid, who's sure demons are all around him now. He's locked away his cloak in a refrigerator, and he's totally broken at this point, which seemed to be what he was at the time when he left, thinking his wife had disappeared now. And so we see him there again, and he finally kind of conquers his problems by the end of that little series. but then he disappears again, and no more Devil Slayer after that. Again, we seem to lose this character who I think has such potential for really interesting things happening, and yet there's one more little piece, which you will get in my last week.
Perfectly laid out and planned and executed. I appreciate that. So yeah, if you're going to want to hear that, you're going to have to stay tuned to later.
That's right. Not giving it to you all at once.
Exactly. Yeah. You know how to tell a story. All right, we are going to jump over to Jim. What you got next for us?
I have not a comic book, but a comic-related movie-ish. It is from 1979, and it is called The Legend of the Superheroes. It is the corniest, the campiest, the cheesiest superhero thing that they could have put together to put on television. We have Batman and Robin from the 1960s TV show reappearing as those characters, those actors, doing that, as well as a reappearance from the Riddler. The original actors are doing those characters.
Gorshin. All right.
And then they threw in a whole bunch of other characters. On the superhero side, we have the Huntress, we have the Green Lantern, we have the Flash, we have Black Canary. Who else was there? There was a few more. And it starts out, they are all gathered together. No, it starts out with the bad guys. The bad guys are in their secret lair, and they have come up with a new plan to destroy the Earth, but they need to let the superheroes know about it just so they can taunt them. So they have the Riddler come up with some idea to taunt the superheroes and tell them that they have less than an hour remaining to just save the Earth before it's destroyed, and give them some weird clues. And the whole thing is, the set is just a weird cave stage decor, and everybody's sitting in an arc, and the leader of the bad guys is Mordru, who is a kind of a rare character. He is one of the original Lords of Chaos. He is one of the most popular magic casters in the DC universe, but you don't see him a whole lot. I think I've seen him probably most in relation to Dr. Fate, who gets his power from the Lords of Order.
Yep.
In opposition to the Lords of Chaos. So I think that's where that comes in. But then along with that, you have the Riddler, and you have Giganta, and Sinestro, and Weather Wizard, and Solomon Grundy, and maybe one more I don't recall off the top of my head. But yeah. And then they sit in this arc, and they are coming up with plans, and then they send them out one at a time to go and foil the superheroes that they are trying to taunt to come and get them. It really makes no sense at all. The superheroes are in like the exact same stage, but they've just redecorated it a little bit. They're in the same arc. They are met together to honor one of their retiring characters, the Scarlet Cyclone. I do not know if the Scarlet Cyclone was ever a character. I don't.
Yes, it was in Justice League for a while.
Well, okay. Is like a version of the Red Tornado or something?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, I guess Justice Spidey was in, yeah.
I don't know if they brought him back because of this movie or something, but he is this ancient old man. They even have cobwebs on him, and his costume's all dirty. They're honoring him with a pocket watch, And while they're doing this, they get an alert from the computer saying that there's, this plot to destroy the Earth. And so, of course, they all go out one by one to search for this place that they're supposed to look for, and they run into problems. First, you see Sinestro fiddling with the Batmobile so that it breaks down by a gas station. And then Solomon Grundy's got this weird hat that makes him look like he wears the mechanic's costume, but he wears a hat that has some kind of magic in it so that nobody recognizes him. He's there and he's tampering with the Batmobile more. So Batman and Robin have to run away. And then they run to a used car lot where somebody the weathered wizard is in disguise and sells them a car that breaks down 5 minutes later. Why are you bothering to help them? Just let it go. They're not going to keep going. And like I said, the script, the decor, the settings, everything is so cheesy. This aired on 1 week. A week later, they had the second episode. The second episode was a roast of the superheroes. Same cast except for the Riddler was not there. But they added a few more appearances in there. And this is more like one of the celebrity roasts that you used to see on television with a variety TV show. And it was hosted by Ed McMahon. And he'd, tell some stories and then invite his guests in. And the guest would usually be one of the bad guys who would tell the story about his interaction with the superhero. And then they introduced the Atom in this one. The Atom was interviewed by one of the characters that they had in the roast, Rhoda Reuter, who was this gossip reporter. And she was interviewing the Atom and the Giganta as they were revealing their illicit relationship to the world, that they were now a couple.
Wow.
So you have 6-inch man with the 7-foot woman, yeah. And it was probably really good effects for the time, but watching it now, it's so painful to see how cheesy they pulled that off. And yeah, it's like I saw it. I was scrolling through the internet. I saw it, and I think it was like $10 or $12, and I bought the DVD. Realizing I don't have a DVD player anymore, it took me a while to figure out how to watch it. But
Your PlayStation.
like, I could not even watch the whole thing straight through. I had to stop when they gave me the break because it was like, no, I can't go on. I had to come back like a week later and watch the second half.
Yeah.
So what's this called again?
Legend of the Superheroes. I thought it was going to be more of I knew it was bad from comments I'd seen on the internet, but I thought it was going to be more of a straight-through movie, like the Batman movie from 1969, 70, the one that followed up on the TV show.
Yep.
But yeah,
never find a place when you got to get rid of a bomb. That's what is the line from that movie.
To start calling them Batman. Yep.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yep.
That's the lineup?
That's the cast, yeah. Let's see. Green Lantern, yeah. The Green Lantern was pretty cute. Flash never even did it. Dr. Sivana, Sinestro.
The actor who's Shazam. No, I've seen him somewhere.
He's not the same actor as it was in the TV show in the 70s.
No, it's not, but it's somebody I've seen on stuff before.
And actually, some of the guest people on the roast part, a lot of them you would have recognized. Actually, Dr. Sivana was, I recognized his voice. I don't recall his name off the top of my head, but he is one of the character actors that you would have seen more frequently on like those variety shows and comedies in the 70s and early 80s. Let me see. I have the list here. Jeff Altman was the Weather Wizard. He was one of those that was fairly popular.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Morton as Solomon Grundy. I don't know if it's the same actor, but he seems like somebody I've seen in another movie so much. Gary Owens, who was another narrator host, is the narrator. Marsha Warfield, who the woman was a bailiff on Night Court. That's where I know her mostly from. The younger black woman on that show. She was a character in this. She was talking to her friend in the phone booth at the gas station, and everything always went through the gas station because that's where the Justice League people were leaving their messages because they didn't have any better way to communicate.
Gary Owens, I think, was the host of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In sometimes. He was kind of the narrator on that.
Yep. William Shallert was a Scarlet Cyclone. Yeah. Howard Morris. Yes, he was one of those actors that did a lot of comedy things, like Rhett Laugh-In and stuff. So yeah, he was Dr. Savannah. Yeah, lots of people that at least I recognize from TV shows and other things back then. But apparently they weren't doing good enough that they could not get Frank Gorshin to come back for the second episode of the roast. He only did the first one, so.
And they couldn't get any of the other Riddlers?
No.
I think there was like, what, 3 of them, or were there 3 Catwomen, I think?
I think it was the Catwoman they had more. I think
a couple Riddlers.
I think there might have been one other Riddler.
Yeah.
Raul Julia.
Frank was members.
Wow.
But yeah, unless you're just absolutely going for the camp, it is not a movie that you ever want to see. But I think it could become a tradition like we used to do at the comic book store where we would watch
the Star Wars New Year's thing.
The holiday special.
Yeah, the holiday special.
I think it could become something like that, but nobody's ever going to want to watch this for the content.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you saved it for our podcast. So
yes.
All right. Yes. All right. Now, with my next review, after hearing the movie review there, you're going to think I'm going to be reviewing a television show, but no, I'm talking about The Twilight Zone #1.
Ooh.
Return to the Twilight Zone in this all-new anthology series featuring stories by some of the best creators in comics today. Each issue is a new tale in the vein of the iconic original television series that's captivated audiences for over 60 years. And like the show, these stories will be revealed in terrifying black and white. This story is done by Dan Waters and Morgan Beam. It is titled Blanks. So the description for this issue on the internet didn't really sound like the comic I read, so I'm just going to dive into my own synopsis. It is a story about a rich billionaire dude here. He's flying in on his helicopter. He's going to this private island area. He's being greeted by this doctor. You've got some of the narration for the title page for the Twilight Zone there. You get all the essence of the television show and the storytelling. This is done completely in black and white. You find out that this billionaire has been contributing to this science research. I think for like 10 years he's been pumping money into this place, and he's meeting up with the doctor here as they're discussing this thing that they are creating. I know my last review dealt with antidotes and science and all that stuff, so it very much helped, pairing these stories together in this episode. Unlike Dr. Kurt's dad, these have nothing to do with each other, so no one's turning into a swamp monster, but maybe someone's going to turn into something. So this story is basically they're testing that they're going to try to do the classic story of living forever, the idea of eternal life and stopping aging, maybe de-age yourself, whatever you can do to halt all of the science and to live forever. We find out that this billionaire has a disease, and he knows that he doesn't have much time left, so he urges the scientists that the scientist says, "Hey, we've made some great leaps and bounds and discoveries, but we're still like far off from cracking this thing. We have to test it and blah blah blah." The billionaire reveals that he doesn't have much time left, so he's going to be patient zero, basically. Um, so I'm just going to kind of set up the tease. He's going in and basically getting ready to be put under as he's going to go through this science research here. And I love the design of this layout. You see him kind of being eased into the surgery or whatever, this experiment. And we go into some mostly black panels as we get to him eventually waking up. And to tease it, now they do show some stuff on the covers, so I will tease one of the main images here. He wakes up, he's like, "I feel young again. I don't have the pains I had, prior to going under. It must have worked." And he's looking around, he sees a doctor in the hallway. He's like, "Doctor, doctor." He's like, "We did it, we solved it, we did it." This doctor turns around and, as the title says, blanks. This this doctor has no face, and very quickly our billionaire guy is very freaked out as he kind of runs through this hospital and realizes that he might be the only normal one. So I want to preserve the storytelling of this first issue, brand new comic. Even though I'm talking about the Twilight Zone, this is not dipping into decades ago storytelling. This is the year 2025 with a new Twilight Zone story, but it very much captured the essence of that show, and just really fun. I like the idea. It sounds like we're going to have different creators for each issue, so I'm excited to see what's going to happen. But yeah, this one was good. I'm a big fan. We were talking before the recording, myself and Dr. Kurtzstad, talking about what we're currently reading, and over the last year or two, I've just been really into anthology storytelling. Not being able to keep up with the current Spider-Mans, and I got my characters I still follow and everything, but I can't keep up like I used to. So I've been kind of looking for stories like this where I can just, doesn't matter where it is in the order of my pull list and my back issue box, I can just pick it up and read it without any prior knowledge. So this was an excellent story, and you do get a little preview for this Return to Sleepy Hollow story. So if you're into Sleepy Hollow, you get a couple page preview of a new story that's being done. This is through IDW. They got a different logo here that doesn't really look like an IDW logo anymore, so I had to decipher what that was there. But so yeah, I really liked it. If you're into anthology stories and science fiction and horror and all that stuff, this was a great introduction to the series. I'm excited to pick up more. All right. Now I'm very excited to hear this.
The end of the story?
Yes, this
the rest of the story.
Yes, this perfectly planned 3-part review. Let's hear it.
So 1975, we have Demon Hunter comes out. 1977, we have Devil Slayer, which is Demon Hunter repackaged. I should have said in the 97 to 100 run, he was in the Defenders. One of the central people in the attempt of the six-fingered hand to make its way into our dimension was Man-Thing.
Ooh. Beautiful.
So now we jump ahead to 2009 is the next part of the story. And in 2009, we get this series, Devil Slayer, Dead of Night. It is a 4-part series. I got the trade paperback version in electronic comics. This actually follows a different character, Sergeant Daniel Silva, who is in Iraq at the time, going there for his 3rd tour of duty. He's tried to make it. He went home for a while. He tried to make it there. Just nothing seemed to be working out for him, so he just decided he would go back. On his way there, reporter attempts to interview him. He's not really interested. And he is reunited with a group that he's worked with before in Iraq. They're kind of a team of military people who all know each other. They all know their different skills and abilities. And they get called out to kind of a warehouse in the area that's supposed to be having trouble there. And they break in, and immediately they're attacked. You see them one by one trying to take on whatever there's going on there, and they're just getting cut down right and left. And it turns out that what they've walked into is, I'll see if I can get the picture here. Aha, a demon incursion.
Ooh.
And all but Daniel are killed during the incursion. He's saved by the reporter who was interviewing him as he came in, shows up and abjures the demons with a spell and pulls Silva out of the building. And as they're leaving, the reporter gets hit and is dying, but he then reveals this. I'm going to just read for a little bit here. First of all, on the way to their kind of safe house where the reporter's taking them, it turns out that they have blamed the death of all of his company on Silva. He's now being looked for by military authorities. And you find out that some of the elements of heaven and some of the elements in hell have decided it's time for Armageddon. And so the demons are trying to have an incursion onto the earth that would push Armageddon to happen. That's their goal in all of this. And then the reporter says that Silva is the Shagish Chulipta. And Silva right away says, well, what's that? And as the reporter can hardly talk anymore, he says, it's the devil slayer. For generations, there have been devil slayers who have been the ones who have been called forth to take on the demonic powers. And in fact, your uncle, Eric Simon Payne, was the last demon hunter. And now you are called to be the demon hunter. And that the way he can take on the demons is there is a mystical sword that only the demon hunter can wield. And he has to gain the sword so that he can stop the incursion of all the demons. So the story then carries us through his search for the sword, his getting of it, and finally his struggle against the demons who are trying to come into our world. And the story, let me just find the very end of the story here, because it's interesting how they end the story then as well. They show him defeating all the demons, and then at the end it says, let's see, I came back to Iraq because I had nothing left back home. Now I've got nothing left for me here either. My friends are gone, my country wants me dead, I've got nowhere to go, and I'm sick of fighting. But war never ends, neither does pain, unless you allow yourself to grow numb to both. And it leaves, and I can't allow myself to go numb. I have to go on so that my friends didn't die in vain. He pays a smuggler to get him across the border. And then in the end, he says, xenogenesis was just the beginning. And so we know that now they've left open the possibility for more Devil Slayer somewhere out there in the future, but I have heard nothing about it since that 2009 book. And actually, I was disappointed that they changed it. No cloak, mystical cloak, no ability to, blend in and teleport around. All the things that I thought were just really wonderful elements of the original Demon Hunter Devil Slayer storyline got pitched for this idea of just kind of this one mystical sword that is now the one kind of element that the Devil Slayer has. But I kind of hope they do something with it. I think this whole idea had so much potential, and yet it seems like for whatever reason, within the comic world, it never got traction. I'm not sure whether it's because there are already enough kind of supernatural sort of things going on that, well, we really don't need to add another one or whatever it is. But I just think there could have been so much great storytelling. What's in that interdimensional space? Does he run into something else? Do some of the weapons have a curse that goes with it that he pulls out of the cloak? And does he have to deal with that? They did deal a little bit with what happens when you've won against all the demons. Now what do? You're a demon hunter with no demons. And what do you do with your life then? So I think there were all kinds of elements of this that could have been really great storytelling, but for whatever reason, it just never was given, I think, the place it could have been to create something that would have been really fun to read.
Yeah, and it's exciting to hear that, starting off as the Atlas book and the creators kind of, making the legal changes they needed to keep telling the stories that never were, but still, not being able to do whatever they had planned initially. But
Yeah. So I think
okay.
it's an interesting look at a comic character that never really got to play. I think probably they should have.
Okay, well, if we end up hearing anything more, I'm sure you're going to bring it to the table.
I will if I hear anything. You bet.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this round of the weekly reviews, but we do have one more segment, and that is the news.
And now, the news.
All right. Welcome to the previews preview. This is for the October 2025 catalogs for products coming out in December and beyond. Kicking it off with Marvel. They had something that was very interesting here. This is called, I've got two different windows, so I gotta cross-reference stuff here. This is the Marvel Winter Break Special. From swimsuits to the sauna. You asked for more swimsuit special, and you've got it, sort of. Hit the slopes with your favorite Marvel heroes this winter with the help of a team of superstar artists, and then warm up in the hot tub, hot springs, hot yoga, lots of places that start with hot. Fret not, true believers. We've got equal parts action and relaxation for your money in this one shot. So, this past summer, 2025, Marvel did one of their old-timey type of gimmicks of the Marvel swimsuit special, but this one being done in a very modern age. And even though those other ones were pretty, I would say, pretty equal with men and women, and just with the drawings and the pinups and things like that. But from my recollection, I think that's all it was just a bunch of drawings. What they did this year with the Marvel Summer swimsuit special was they played off of that gimmick, but they gave it a story, and they had essentially, I'm trying to remember if it was AIM. I mentioned them in the Man Thing stories. I'm trying to think if they were behind it. Good chance that they were, but it was basically them kind of feeding into AI and treating that as the enemy, and basically coming out with a swimsuit special starring the Marvel superheroes, but it wasn't them. It was basically a doctored version that was basically out there, and the public was kind of reacting, thinking like, I can't believe our heroes are kind of doing this, and people look up to you, blah blah blah. And it was basically the Marvel superheroes teaming up together to do their version of it before this magazine or whatever the publication was could continue on with theirs. And it was a very tongue-in-cheek type of thing. It had a very interesting story where a group of Marvel characters were going across the Marvel universe and trying to just get everybody involved, whether it be Logan, whether it be Wolverine and Rogue and whatever, Punisher, and getting people back into it and poking fun at the old Marvel swimsuit specials while doing, their own updated version and keeping it very tasteful and things like that. So that must have been a success, because now they have a winter break special, which will probably be something of the similar vein. But it was fun, and I think it added more material than you would normally get in one of these kind of gimmick issues. For our listeners and watchers here, I am the only one who has some picks through the catalog. Kirby is unable to join us this weekend for the club because sometimes he'll chime in with some. So I'm just going to jump into my list here. That was the only one of note from Marvel outside of ongoing series. looking at DC related stuff, um, Harley and Ivy, Life and Crimes, issue number 2. We talked about issue number 1 that we're excited about because Erica Henderson, who was the artist for the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl series, she is, I think she's doing writing and art for this upcoming Harley and Ivy one. Let's see here. I'm just going through to see if there's anything else DC Comics related. There's a Poison Ivy 2025 annual that I'll be getting. I was telling Dr. Kurtstad off air that while I'm taking a break from drawing a new comic book, I'm finally catching up on the reading that has been waiting for me. And the Poison Ivy series that's written by G. Willow Wilson and a circulation of artists. That book has been amazing. I got it from day one.
Yeah.
I fell 2 years behind, but I kept buying them. That was one of the rare titles that I kept buying the issues, even though I wasn't actively reading them. Now I'm playing catch up. I just got into 2024, but so the 2025 annual is up on the list for the end of this year. It gives me the vibes of like an Alan Moore Swamp Thing. Like, not saying it's that kind of material and blah blah blah. It's these creators are doing what Alan Moore and his artists did with Swamp Thing, with the saga of the Swamp Thing, of kind of telling the definitive story, and kind of reinventing the character or breathing new life into the character. And what they've been doing with that Poison Ivy book has been phenomenal, and kind of creating some new characters, but also bringing in like Solomon Grundy into the team, and Killer Croc is part of the lineup. Harley is definitely there. But that Poison Ivy series that started in 2022 and is still going, that has been an amazing read, and I wouldn't be surprised if I buy the hardcover collections of that, even though I have all the singles. It's one of those series that is standing out amongst the others. But issue number 39 of Poison Ivy is also out, so that's where they're at the moment. So as far as DC Comics goes, I think that's all I have for DC Comics. So jumping into independents, I'm just going to go alphabetical. There's a new Archie Christmas Spectacular. I always get in whatever new one shot for Archie, which is their version of the stories this day and age is leading the issue with a brand new story. And then all the other ones are related to a theme or reprints from over the decades. So we still get some new content. It's not all 100% new, but they at least lead it with a brand new story. And since my cameo in Archie Comics first showed up in a Christmas story, the beauty of that is because how many times they come, Archie and Christmas, they do a lot of stories. That's like one of their hallmarks, basically, is coming out with Christmas stuff. So what's cool is that since I appeared in a Christmas story of Archie, they will reprint that story. So I'm always looking at the updated digest on the rack at the supermarket. I'm looking forward to the Christmas Spectacular single issue because it's happened before. So anytime that I can get my cameo reprinted, I'll keep buying it. So
And that's the shameless plug portion of our show.
Pretty much, yep. And I don't know. It's so hard to find out when these stories would get published. I basically just have to just keep looking at every single Christmas release to see if I'm in there. So, so that is that. Archie versus Minor Threats. I've got a couple issues in the box to dive into. The very popular Minor Threats world that Patton Oswalt is a co-creator on, but he's got some awesome. I'm trying to think if that's Scott Hepburn, if that's the other creator on there, but they're now crossing over with Archie Comics. So while I've never dove into the Minor Threats world proper, which is its own kind of independent superhero type universe, I'm definitely finding my way in through the Archie characters. So I'm excited about that. Hellboy and the BPRD, the Ghost Ships of Labrador. There is I think a second issue, if I'm not mistaken. I gotta expand my window here. Yep, issue number 2 is available, so I've got 1 and 2 on pre-order. I Hate Fairyland is issue number 46, so we're getting up to issue 50 on that series. Very excited. There's a graphic novel that I'm going to get the synopsis for here, so I'm going to do a copy and the paste. Since I already sent my order, all of the titles are not clickable anymore, so I have to cross-reference and cross-search to bring up synopsis, and sometimes even if I type it in, it doesn't even pop up. So there is something called I'm just seeing if I can get the synopsis here. I don't think it's going to pop up for me. It's an original graphic novel that is called Kai Jr. It's basically like a kaiju young adult, young kid. It's like a Muppet Babies, but with kaiju. And it seems like it's its own kind of thing. I don't have the synopsis here, so unfortunately I can't say anything more, but that is on my list because the name is brilliant. I like kaiju related books, and I thought this is a very okay. I was able to find the synopsis here. Um, Kai Jr. Here we go. Kai Jr. will be king of the kaiju. Well, he thinks he will be one day. He's only 6 right now. The other problem is that the king of the kaiju have a special power, and his hasn't developed yet. So Kai Jr. sets off to learn how to unlock his power from the first king of kaiju, the great Kathala. So yeah, this is a like a young probably a younger audience graphic novel type thing, but I always enjoy all that stuff. It's got a really cute design, and so Kai Jr. That is something I'm excited for. Let's see here. Future issues of Minor Arcana that we originally covered as a club discussion. There is a Spawn the Dark Ages blank sketch cover variant. While I haven't been I'm not never been a big Spawn reader at all, but it's an all black sketch cover, and it's Spawn the Dark Ages. And so I look forward to I had an idea that I wanted to with my whiteout pens that I keep experimenting with, which just give awesome images on the black paper. I wanted to do a Pepe the King prawn from the Muppets, and because this is Spawn the Dark Ages, so I wanted to do a prawn the Dark Ages. So when I get that variant cover, I'm going to experiment with some ideas to draw Pepe the King prawn as an original sketch cover. So that's on my order, and then I'll read the comic too. So that's a bonus. You're buying it for the cover, and you can get a story on the inside too. Who would have thought? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Godzilla are crossing over, so issue number 2 is coming out in December. So I look forward to start reading that in November. There is something called The Nobody. I was very excited to learn about this because I was unaware. So Jeff Lemire, just mentioned him with the Minor Arcana. He is somebody who I am just always a fan of. I love his art style, and there's a collection of stories that is being reprinted, something I didn't even know existed in the first place. It is called The Nobody, and apparently it was from the DC Vertigo line, but this will be a new printing. Um, the tiny, isolated fishing village of Largemouth never saw much excitement until the arrival of the stranger, that is. Wrapped from head to toe in bandages and wearing weird goggles, he quietly took up residence in the sleepy town's motel. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, hey, this sounds like the Invisible Man. Well, this is Jeff Lemire's version of the Invisible Man, done through DC and Vertigo. Driven by curiosity, the townfolk quickly learn the tragic story of his past and the terrible accident that left him horribly disfigured. Eventually, the town embraces the stranger as one of their own, but do his bandages hide more than just his scars? This is inspired by H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man. The Nobody explores themes of identity, fear, and paranoia in a small community from an up-and-coming alternative comics creator. This was back then because Jeff Lemire now draws every comic that exists. So yeah, this is a 144-page collection of comics that I had no idea this story existed. Invisible Man, I definitely love those movies and that character, and to be drawn through Jeff Lemire's style, I cannot wait. I was so excited because I'm like, ooh, what's this new thing? Realizing that it's something that's existed for quite some time. So yeah, if you are a fan of The Invisible Man and you're a fan of Jeff Lemire, I think that is going to be an awesome style to pair up together. And one more that I am Searching the synopsis for the last one on my list. It is a new series called Wrestle Heist. I believe this is Kyle Starks, as I still load up my background here. I need one of those Tony Stark type computer setups where I can just do this and throw it over to that screen, and then it'll save me from, yeah. Okay,
That's
here we
really
go.
good.
Wrestle Heist from Image Comics. Yep, Kyle Starks. Ooh, he's writing and drawing. That's an extra bonus. Kyle Starks, here's the story. A former pro wrestler who has a brush with death thanks to a crooked promoter assembles a crew of fellow wrestlers he screwed over to rob him blind during the biggest wrestling event of the year. From the outrageous action-packed mind of multi-time Eisner nominee Kyle Starks, who, by the way, I happen to have some Kyle Starks sticker art. I'm part of his sticker club. So I got in the mail I got a Dracula. He did the James Gunn Superman style. So I got the Hawk Girl and the Nathan Fillion Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific, and of course Superman and Crypto in style. Kyle Starks style. Kyle Starks style. Yes. So Eisner nominee Kyle Starks. Let's see here, with eye-popping colors by Vladimir Popov. This comes a no-holds-barred heist caper packed with body slams and backstabs. So I'm a fan of wrestling. I'm a fan of Kyle Starks. I'm a fan of comedy, and all of that stuff is coming together in a book called Wrestle Heist. So that is a very short list of what we're used to, as we are all kind of going with the ever-evolving comic industry and the diamond distribution and all this other stuff that's going on. Sadly, our lists have been getting smaller and smaller, but we're still bringing books to the club, whether they're new, whether they're old, whether they're Kickstarter or Zoop campaigns, or books that are made from our very friends in the comic community. So we always encourage people.
Sold me on the nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anybody, Jeff Lemire, it's one of those things that I say this as the highest compliment, that like everything that Jeff Lemire, when he draws it all looks the same. Like, it's his style. A lot of the similar characters, so much that you're like, okay, maybe is this character from that? No, it's a whole new character. Like, it's not any kind of discouragement on the style. It's a comfort thing where I know that if I know he's drawing it, because I love it, I know I'm just gonna dive into that world, and seeing him take on the Invisible Man through his style, he brings a lot of gloom, and we learned that with recently talking about the Minor Arcana, that he's just very good with the watercolor type work, and just the fogginess and the grayness and the muddiness of his art, and that style works great through the characters and their emotions and what they're going through. And that seems very fitting for him to do something like one of the Universal monsters, let alone the Invisible Man. So cool. So we highly encourage everyone to always check out to their local comic shop or your preferred online retailer and go through the catalogs, because there's 500 plus pages, and what I covered could barely fit on 2 pages. So there's always stuff to seek out and let people know about the books that you want. That is going to do it for our show. Here's the very quick plugs: crimsoncowl.com for info and original webcomics. If you want to order some of the comics that we do through Crimson Cowl Media, whether it's through David Gloyd or the ones that I do, I have a separate email as well. But otherwise, crimsoncowlcomics@gmail.com if you want to reach out, or go to our social media and see all the info there. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes for the audio version. Subscribe, rate, and review. That definitely helps the podcast. If you want the full video experience, then you definitely got to check out Crimson Cowl Comic Club over on YouTube. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the episodes. Comment and like all of that stuff. Every YouTube show says it. It's because it's very important and it helps the show grow. We're here to talk about the books that we love. So honestly, no matter what happens after we hit stop and send it off to the YouTube, honestly, it doesn't really matter that much, because we're all sitting here talking about comics, and that's how the show started. So we're always just looking to expand the comic realm no matter what. Kirby isn't here with us, so this will be a plug for his stuff. Under the Cowl of MS over on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. He has episodes where he talks about living with MS. He's got episodes where he unboxes things that he bought. He does live claim sales with other people over on the internet that are just going through their collection and offering deals on their books and sending, packages through the mail and just finding goodies and oldies and stuff like that. For the month of October, which will have wrapped up by the time everyone checks out this episode, he was doing Halloween-centric comic book reviews. So we're talking anywhere from like 4 to 7 minutes, maybe over on YouTube. There might be some versions on Instagram as well. But basically going into his pile and reading something that fit the October and Halloween theme. So if you want even more comic book reviews, Kirby is doing that over at Under the Cowl of MS. I have my comic books, Rice Christopher. You can reach out latchkeykid@gmail.com. That's LAATSCH to purchase my books. I have art accounts on Facebook and Instagram. I've been posting tons of Kermit drawings for the month of October. So if you want to see 31 different drawings of Kermit, these are just 3 different versions. Oh, this one's got 3 versions on one card even. So there's a lot of Kermit art that is out there through my social media. And then I have Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube. By the time people check this out, a brand new episode with Art Baltazar and Jamie Cosley. We got them together to talk about their brand new comic book, Fribbits. Fribbits is their own frog characters. This is all 100% created by these 4 gentlemen: Art Baltazar, Jamie Cosley, Tyler Cosley, and Todd Webb. And they all bring their different expertise of their art cartoonist style, and they tell stories with their own frog-related characters. This is a great book. This harkens back to just old, like, Harvey Comics type of thing, where you just like get all these little mini stories of all the different characters within that world, and you're getting that from all of these very talented cartoonists. So if you check out Cartoonist by Night on YouTube, you'll hear all about the Fribbits book, and you can buy it through them. And then on the episode, we were all drawing characters from memory. A friend of mine suggested 5 characters that nobody saw until I opened up the email as we recorded. And as an example, one of them was the California Raisins. So all of us in the show, without any reference, we had 5 minutes to do it, to draw the California Raisin by memory. So here's the reveal of what I came up with, which ended up being fairly close.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones that I did that I'm looking at right here maybe aren't as good looking as this one. But my friends on that show are much more talented than I, so it's very cool to see their versions of these characters. And yeah, so that's just an example. Go to Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube for all of that. That is going to do it. Oh, one more thing, Warrior Con, because this will be probably the last episode before the Warrior Con. That is on November 22nd, Saturday, November 22nd. All of that info is if you go to WarriorCon on Facebook and Instagram. Art Baltazar is going to be there. Scoot McMahon's going to be there. Tim Seeley, Mike Norton, Philip Kennedy Johnson. You got a lot of heavy hitters that are joining the WarriorCon for year 2. And then there's some guys that you'll know. Anthony Laatsch is going to be there. Kurt Schub of Crimson Cowl Media is going to be there. David Gloyd of Crimson Cowl Media, they're going to be there. So yes, happy to have David and Kurt. I was going to say cross the pond, but cross the state line to get over to WarriorCon.
Cool.
I still had Fribbits on the mind when I was thinking pond. But it's exciting to now have my Wisconsin art friends meet my Illinois art friends at an awesome con run by my friend Bernie, WarriorCon, and it's all at a high school, the Maine West High School in Des Plaines, Illinois, and all of the concessions and the table fees and the entrance fees and all the admission stuff, all that goes right back into their arts program there at the high school that Bernie is a teacher at. So it's all going for a good cause, and I know last year some of the students, much like David's West Bend convention, some of the students set up tables as well to sell their art. So it's all cool, and it's even better that it's probably going to draw more people to it with the Marvel and DC names coming to the show as well. So that was the short version of the plugs. I cannot make it any shorter, folks. That is going to do it for another episode of Crimson Cowl Comic Club. Once again, tell a friend about the show. That is going to do it. This whole time, I've been burning at the Man-Thing's touch.
This whole time, I've been hiding in an interdimensional space inside my cloak.
I've been Myrtle's boring dog.
In a world of Frank Gorshin's, be a John Aston.
To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.